The 2025 World Series arrives in Los Angeles, tied at 1 after each team played to its strengths in Toronto. But the focus now shifts to Andy Pages' struggles and a massive Game 3 duel between Tyler Glasnow and Max Scherzer that could set the tone for the rest of this Fall Classic.
You are Locked On Dodgers, your daily Los Angeles Dodgers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
It's time for Locked On Dodgers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Glasnow versus Scherzer, two absolute dogs taking the mound tonight in LA. Who's got the real edge in Game 3? Andy Pages, defensive gold, offensive ice cold. Is it time for Dave Roberts to make a move in center field? But first, the bats and arms traded punches in Toronto. 2 games later, this World Series is even. Now, as the series shifts to LA, the question is, Travis, which strength wins out?
Well, they've been riding the pitching the whole time, right? I don't expect that that's going to change anytime soon. It'd be nice to hit a few more home runs like they did in Game 2, but we're going to get into all of it on today's episode of Locked On Dodgers, which is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off of your first purchase.
He's Travis Rodgers. I'm Harry Ruiz, two guys who talk sports for a living and bleed Dodger blue for life. You can get more Travis on 710 ESPN LA on your radio or the ESPN LA app on your phone from 3 to 6 p.m. with the Travis and DeMarco Show. As for me, I'm the Spanish play-by-play broadcaster for the USC Football Trojans and the Las Vegas Raiders. But nothing beats jumping on the mic every weekday morning and diving deep into what I love most, talking Dodger baseball with you. To everyone who's new, welcome and thank you for joining us. We're pumped to have you as part of the Locked On Dodgers family. And hey, if you're watching on YouTube, make sure to hit that subscribe button so you never miss any of our content. Strength versus strength resulted in a split at Toronto. Game 1 was all about the Blue Jays bats. 11 runs, 9 in 1 inning. That's not a typo. 9 in 1 frame against the Dodgers staff that had allowed just 4 total during the entire NLCS. That's the kind of offensive eruption that can shake a clubhouse confidence, but not the Dodgers clubhouse confidence because they didn't blink. They came right back in Game 2 with Yoshinobu Yamamoto channeling every bit of his ace mentality. 9 innings, total command, and he absolutely handcuffed one of the most dangerous lineups in baseball. That was pitching artistry, and it set the tone for this team heading back to Los Angeles, Travis.
Yeah, it did. I thought it was a really interesting kind of mix of the two games because the Dodger offense has been oddly consistent. And by consistent, I mean they're consistently scoring 4 or 5 runs. That's kind of what you can count on from them to put up 4 or 5, whether it's, a 5-run and it feels comfortable the way that it did in Game 2, or whether it's 4 runs and you get your head kicked in the way that they did in Game 1. The variable, of course, is what's going on the mound. Yoshinobu Yamamoto was not good, not great, whatever the next thing above that is. And he did it for the second game in a row. So when you get pitching like that, you don't have to score a lot of runs. When you get a more typical pitching performance, and I don't even want to say bad from Blake Snell, it was just okay, right? It wasn't what you would expect from him considering the way that he's looked so far, but it certainly wasn't disastrous. And, he put himself in a little bit of a pickle. The bullpen was unable to bail him out. That Game 1 was kind of Dodger fans' worst nightmare, where the offense is kind of quiet, the starting pitching is just okay, and then you got to lean on the bullpen, and we saw that they just weren't ready for that. And then in Game 2, the guys did what they needed to do. You got a couple of big home runs. You got to grind out a couple of more runs to kind of give yourself a little bit of a cushion. And, I think it's going to be more of the same. If they can get the starting pitching into the 7th inning and beyond, they're in great shape. If they go to the bullpen earlier than that, they're in deep trouble unless they score a lot of runs.
Now, here's where things are going to get fascinating for me, Travis, because both teams won the way that they're supposed to win. Toronto smashed LA, dominated with pitching. But as we head into 3 games in 3 days at Dodger Stadium, which strength is more sustainable? And let's start with the Blue Jays. They've been living off of hard contact and early pitch counts. If they can get to Tyler Glasnow or Shohei Ohtani early in counts at Dodger Stadium, that's where they're going to be able to thrive. But we know that Chavez Ravine isn't Rogers Center. That ball isn't going to be going the same way it did. Those warning track fly balls, they might stay in the park now for these Toronto Blue Jays. That grand slam, that home run from Kirk, that might stay in the field. But right now, I feel that I trust more the Dodgers pitching side with Glasnow getting that rest that he needed. Shohei Ohtani, we know that he has played better after getting double-digit days off or multiple more days off than less. So I feel that we're set in a better position. And now Blake Snell, who is more of a get a consistent basis of just traction of 5 days, I'm back. 4 days, I'm back. It's going to be better for him in 5 days.
Yeah, I don't worry about him at all. It was one of those, kind of regression to the mean sort of situations where, you're not going to throw an A+ every time. There was a B- thrown in there. That's okay. They lost the game, but this idea that you're just going to kind of go through it as easily as you did go through the first 3 rounds, it's unlikely. You're going to lose some games. You're going to have some situations that are less than perfect, and that's what they got in game 1. Like you said, the huge advantage that the Dodgers have is on the mound. The Dodgers starting pitching is significantly better than what's going on in Toronto. Like, look, Max Scherzer is going to go tonight. Max Scherzer's been around a long time. Max Scherzer's a first ballot Hall of Famer, but he's not the Max Scherzer that you've gotten to know over the last, nearly 20 years in Major League Baseball. He's a different version of that. Glasnow, it can be terrific. I think you touched on it, Harry. I think one of the things for me that is the thing that I keep my eye on, and Yamamoto got it going later in the game. The Blue Jays don't strike out a ton. They're really hard to put away. And Yamamoto got going a little bit later. And I think it's more of a testament to how good he was than anything else. But there's going to be some traffic. You're going to have to pitch out of some tough situations because they're not just going to be walking back to the dugout. They're going to get some hits. They're going to find, that first game, I thought they got into it with a bunch of soft contact, which, okay, I mean, it doesn't matter. If you're on, you're on. And I think that's one of the things that Glasnow is going to be really pressed to do, is to make sure that he can survive soft contact, to make sure that he can survive a little traffic. And look, I keep coming back to this. They're going to have to get some big outs out of the bullpen. We still haven't seen Roki Sasaki. It's been a long time since he's pitched. So I don't know if you look to get him into a game just to get him into a game, but the less these guys pitch, the more concerned I get, because you're going to need to be sharp when you eventually do come in. And they're really high leverage guys we have not seen.
And Travis, when you come in, and I know that you might have been just punching air when this was happening in game 1, Blake Snell, early in the game, it seemed like every leadoff batter was getting on base, and you were already getting the next guy up with somebody at first base, somebody at second base. And it was like, man, you're playing behind the 8 ball. Even though the Dodgers were able to get a 1-0 lead, a 2-0 lead in that game 1, it all disappeared with a 2-run home run. Why? Because the runner was on base. You served a great pitch for a batter that wasn't going to give it up. They hit it, tied game, and we're back to square one. Right here, the Dodgers, they need to avoid those kind of mistakes. That when Vladdy Guerrero comes up, George Springer isn't at first place. When Alejandro Kirk comes up, you don't have him with 2 runners on base. And that, for me, is the key right now for this Dodgers pitching staff. Look at Yoshinobu Yamamoto. Why was he able to mow down every last of the 20 batters that he faced? Because he wasn't getting traffic on base, because he was getting ahead on counts like Snell was, but unlike Snell, he was able to finish them. And when you finish them, bring the next guy up, and your confidence keeps going up. And even though the lead was minimal for a big chunk of the game for the Dodgers, it was like, all right, 1-0, then 1-1. And then you're tied 1-1 all the way to the 7th inning. And with Yamamoto pitching the way he was, it was just a matter of time for the bats. I'll say this. It still hasn't been, since the wild card round, the Dodgers haven't scored more than 5 runs in a game. That's a big issue right now.
It is. I think of all the things that have gone on, the bullpen being what the bullpen is not a huge surprise. The starting pitching being as good as it's been is maybe this much of a surprise, just because it's been so extraordinary. But the offense being able to get on track is unable to get on track, I should say. I agree, is a huge surprise. with the exception of these are the best teams in baseball, right? You're not seeing the fifth best reliever. You're not seeing the fifth best starter. You're seeing nothing but the very best. You're getting high leverage guy after high leverage guy, and getting 4 or 5 runs a game has proven to be good enough for him. So I'm not super worried about the offense. I do think that they're going to score enough, but this isn't the Reds. The Reds just did not have the firepower to kind of hang with the Dodgers. These other teams, they do. The Blue Jays, I thought, I think they're probably fairly happy with where they are at a 1-1 split. They're looking probably to win 1 in LA and get this thing back to Toronto, do exactly what they did against the Seattle Mariners and play in front of their home fans. But if the Dodgers score 5 runs in each of these games, I think they will win more often than they're going to lose, because I don't see this pitching staff giving up more than 5 very often.
Yeah, and that's where the question comes in. Can the arms hold up if the bats don't explode? Because while the Dodgers rotation is elite, they're still waiting for that offense to have that statement game. Freeman, Betts, Ohtani, they're the 3 MVPs on top, but then the guys beneath them. You had finally Will Smith and Max Muncy have their signature moments. What about Teoscar Hernandez? What about Kike Hernandez, who is Mr. October, and he has been delivering? He already has an RBI single in this World Series. Can he come through again? One strength has to give, and a big decision now looms for Dave Roberts. The one name that I didn't mention is the one that is centering around this situation. He's been elite on the field, but missing at the plate since the second half of the season. Coming up on Locked On Dodgers, is it time to ride or rest Andy Pages?
The NBA is back. Well, everything's back right now, right? The sports equinox, we got a little bit of everything every single night, and there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Because even if you miss the start of the game, let's say you get home from work late or whatever it is, or you want to ride the hot hand as you're watching these games unfold, you see a guy that just can't miss. FanDuel, well, they've got live bets on everything for who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same game parlay for a shot at bigger payouts. It keeps every game exciting, especially when your team's making that late push. And we got a guy here in LA that is making every single thing that he looks at. So you can get in on that even as it's unfolding. So right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA.
Thanks for making us your first listen wherever you may be tuning in, either on your favorite podcast app or our YouTube channel. Smash that notification bell so you never miss a beat. Full episodes, hot takes, breaking Dodgers news, and the Dodgers postcast show with Pete Fox live after the final out of every World Series game. If it drops, you're on it. That's how you become an everydayer here on Locked On Dodgers. The big question, Andy Pages, ride or rest? It's been a tough postseason for the Dodgers center fielder, Andy Pages. He was electric with the glove all season long. He was great with his bat through the first half of the season, with everybody, including us, asking, why is he not in the All-Star game? Why is he not in the All-Star roster? But right now, since the second half of the season, in the postseason, with the bat, it's been rough, like really rough. 4 for 43 in the postseason. That's a .093 batting average with a .294 OPS. I feel that there might be people being like, is Michael Conforto available right now? Because it's been that kind of situation right now for Andy Pages, Travis. At least his glove has been saving him, but with his bat, it's been very, very rough.
Yeah, he's ice cold, and there's not much to say other than that. He is ice cold. Now, when it comes to the question of whether you go with someone else or not, Harry, you know how I think. I don't like walks. I don't like errors, and what I really don't like is messing with something that's working. Right. And I get that Andy Pages has not gotten a hit in what feels like a million years. I get that it feels like he comes up and he's got an 0-2 count from the second he steps in the batter's box, but he is playing a good center field. He has been pretty good defensively. And I don't like the idea of just changing some, like if you were desperate to score runs, if you were desperate to try to save a series, then maybe you try to go somewhere else. But I would continue to ride the lineup that's been working. I get it. Like, what did you say? 4 for $4 million or whatever he is along the way. But they've also only lost 2 playoff games with him in the lineup regularly. So I think that's the number that probably supersedes the batting average. Now, the other part of the question is, who would you put in instead? It's not like there's a ton of other options like, oh, yeah, put that guy's bat in there. That'll automatically make us better offensively. I don't see an easy fix. Now, there are guys, whether you want to put Call or Dean or whatever, but I still think that Andy Pages is clearly the best option among them. And here's the other thing. He's cold as can be, but he's also a threat. He's also a 25 plus home run bat that can run into one at any given time. So I would continue to play him as long as they continue to win games.
The thing right here, Travis, is that him being in the 9 hole in that lineup, you're not thinking, because before he was, with all the injuries and everything that was going on with the roster, there were games that he was batting cleanup for the Dodgers. But most of the time he was in that 6 hole, 7 hole, even 8, but very rarely in the 9 hole. Now that the lineup is complete, he's in the 9 hole. And that's a position where it's like, just get on base. We got Shohei Ohtani coming up, and that's a guy that's same case right now in the playoffs. But you take away that game 4 of the NLCS where he was the greatest player ever in the history of the sport. You take that game away, and it's been a very low bar postseason for Shohei Ohtani. But he's Shohei Ohtani. You're like, man, it just takes one swing of the bat, and he'll wake up and he'll be on track to do great things. Andy Pages, when you're in the 9 hole, the chore is very easy. Your homework is very easy. Get on base. He's been swinging at ball 4 left and right. He's been getting struck out left and right. He hasn't been getting the ball in play. But look at what happened when he actually got a hit in game 2 of the World Series. He got on base with 1 out in the top of the 8th inning. He got a hit. He ended up scoring that run that was the insurance one where you went from up by 2 to up by 3 and then eventually up by 4. If you get on base, good things happen. And it doesn't matter. You said it. He's a threat for a home run every single time he's up there. Right now, his homework isn't to get a home run. It's like, man, just get on base, avoid swinging at bad pitches, make that pitcher get tired with his arm and set it up for Shohei.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. You kind of talk about the batting order of where he is right now in that 9 hole, and he's not producing there at all, and he's right in front of Shohei. Maybe there's something you could do as far as juggling the lineup towards the bottom, and maybe you flip flop 8 and 9 and put Pages in a different spot to try to get him. You just kind of spark something along the way. He's cold as can be. He's missing the ball by a mile. He's not having a bunch of great at bats. I thought, kind of going back to game 1 when he came up with the bases loaded and just the 1 out situation, I was thinking, okay, here a strikeout here is not the end of the world. Just don't hit into a double play. Of course, Shohei was, right there on the heels as well, and he didn't really do much either. I know I'm a broken record on this. I know the everydayers are probably sick of me hearing me say this over and over again. You're facing nothing but really good pitching. I mean, you look at Mookie is not hitting a ton. You look at Shohei, like you mentioned, Shohei had the big game, had a home run late in game 1, had a hit in game. So he's been okay, but certainly not what you would expect. It's been more the middle of the order. It's been the Muncys, it's been the Smiths, it's been those sort of guys that have kind of driven most of the offense so far. But when you're facing nothing but elite pitching, and that's basically what they've been seeing since that Philadelphia series, and you get cold, and then you get more elite pitching topped. Usually you get a chance to kind of come out of the lull when you get into a regular season series where you get starter 4 or 5, you get bullpen guys 6 or 7, and you get a little bit of an easier look at some of these guys. They haven't seen a mediocre arm in nearly a month. And if you're going bad and you're just getting ace stuff thrown at you every single night, it's a really hard way to dig out of the hole.
Yeah, and yesterday during the press conference that Dave Roberts had, literally just coming off of the airplane and getting to Dodger Stadium after a delayed flight, Sonia Chen from MLB.com asked him about Andy Pages, and he pretty much said that sitting Pages remains on the table. Sure. It's an option. You asked Travis, it's like, okay, if not him, who? Tommy Edman, do we feel comfortable with him after having his season cut short, going back on the IL due to multiple injuries, but the ankle one being the one that has us the most concerned about him playing center field? Alex Call is a guy who is better fit for left-handed pitchers. So would you throw him in the lineup right now, going all against right-handed guys? What's the best case scenario for the Dodgers? Dean, I feel like it's like, okay, man, he has come into the games as a center field replacement. But it's like just defense, just pinch running. Actually, somebody compared him yesterday to Dave Roberts when he was with those Red Sox. And it was like, hey, actually, that's a good comparison right there between those two guys. It was like, hey, run out there, get us in scoring position and be in a better spot. But just speaking about the replacements, does Andy Pages go on the IL? Because you know that he won't be able to play the next round, but you can bring somebody up if you feel more comfortable with another bat. But there's options, but I just don't feel none of them right now are better than the potential of Andy Pages. The problem is that we only have 3 more games guaranteed in the World Series.
Yeah,
before that.
But they're not losing games because Andy Pages is cold, right? You know what I mean? And the idea of putting Edman out there is really the only other. I'm putting him out there, put Rojas in the infield, and all of a sudden, you know, that's a lineup that at least conceivably works. But the Dodgers haven't put Tommy Edman in the outfield in a long time. That's clearly something that they're trying to avoid. They're letting him stay at second base. That's not something that they want to do. And look, if you were down, they've lost 2 playoff games. Right. I mean, this is something that is not, you know, an anchor on their offense. It's certainly not something that anybody's pleased with. And I'm not saying that you can't do it and that you can't find a way to maybe get, you know, a call and at bat if, in fact, you get a left-handed pitcher in there that you like and you want to swap Pages out. You certainly can. But this is not the thing that, you know, is killing the Dodgers, that's sinking them. It's an unfortunate cold spell to be sure, but I just don't think they have a ton of better options at this place or at this point other than Edman. And clearly they don't want to put Edman in the outfield right now because of that ankle.
Yeah, my gut. Roberts gives Pages another shot.
I
Game 3 at home. You get the crowd behind him. If the struggles continue, then you can make a move by Game 4. Because yes, it's true, Travis. It's only 1 loss in this series, 2 in the postseason, but you have the same amount of losses against the Blue Jays than you did against the Reds, the Brewers, and the Phillies combined. So 1 more loss, and it's like, okay, the pressure is completely on. You need to win Game 5. You need to win Game 4 to not go to Toronto obligated to win 2 in a row to win the World Series.
You're right, but what they need to do is get Betts going, get Ohtani going, get Freeman going, get Teoscar Hernandez. You talk about ice cold. I mean, he's been a much bigger problem hitting in the middle of the order, I think, than Pages at the back. But they got a lot of guys that could stand to have their graph tick up at some point. They just have not hit nearly what you would expect them to hit like. The good news is they're pitching lights out, and they're going to, you know, I think that's their plan, is ride crazy good starting pitching, score your 4 or 5 runs, and hope that stands up.
The guys you mentioned, their leash is a little bit longer than one for Andy Pages. Well, Speaking of making something happen, Game 3 is about to bring us a heavyweight matchup. Tyler Glasnow, Max Scherzer under the Dodger Stadium lights. Next on Locked On Dodgers, who's got the edge tonight? The NFL season is back, and the Fall Classic is here. Honestly, there's nothing better than being at the stadium surrounded by fellow fans, cheering for our team. But let's be honest, getting tickets can be a hassle. Between queues, login screens, and prices jumping at checkout, it's frustrating. That's why I use Game Time, the app that gives the advantage back to fans. Game Time is fast, easy, and backed by the Game Time guarantee. You'll always get 100% authentic tickets, delivered on time and at the best price. Plus, all fees are included, so the price you see is the price that you pay. I pulled up Game Time, and in just a couple of taps, I saw amazing deals. I'm talking about your favorite NFL games as low as $100, or if you're trying to go to Travis Ravine this week, Game Time is also the way to go. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off of your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's promo code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Game Time today. Don't forget to follow Locked On Dodgers not only on YouTube, but on X, Instagram, and TikTok as well. You can find Travis on social media at Travis Rodgers on X and Instagram. Rodgers, just like Dodgers, but replace the D with an R. Meanwhile, I'm at Harry Ruiz on X, at Harry_Ruiz on Instagram, and at Harry Ruiz_ on TikTok. 3 straight nights of World Series baseball at Chavez Ravine. You love to see it, and hopefully it's the last 3 nights. And tonight, it's a pitching matchup that features Tyler Glasnow for the Dodgers, Max Scherzer for the Blue Jays. Glasnow is quietly putting together the best postseason run in his career. This will be his 4th outing, 3rd start. The Dodgers have won every game that he's pitched in. Just 1 earned run allowed across all appearances, 18 strikeouts, 7 hits, 8 walks. When he's locating that fastball, Travis, and dropping that slider in for strikes, he's untouchable. Then there's Scherzer. 3-time Cy Young Award winner, future Hall of Famer, 2-time World Series champion. He's built for moments like this, but he's not the Max Scherzer that we grew up watching, that we saw from the 2010s through the 2020s. He's not the guy that we saw dominate with the Nationals, and even the one that the Dodgers traded for early in the 2020s. So it's like, okay, how do we feel of this matchup, Travis?
I'll put it to you this way. I love how you said that, Harry. I think it's, if you just said to me, do you want 2025 Max Scherzer or do you want October Tyler Glasnow? It's an easy pick. It's Glasnow, and I think it's Glasnow comfortably. Now, career-wise, obviously, it's Scherzer. Could Scherzer show up and have some sort of time machine game where all of a sudden it looks like, he's vintage Mad Max and it's the 7th inning and he's got 13 strikeouts? Sure, that could happen. I wouldn't be totally flabbergasted, but I like where the Dodgers are in the pitching matchup here. The only downside to Glasnow, I think, in the postseason has been that he has not been Snell or Yamamoto or Ohtani. He has simply been excellent where those other guys have been historically terrific, right? I think that had he gave you an A effort in that last game against Milwaukee, and we just kind of went, yeah, okay, because we saw what Snell had done, we saw what Yamamoto had done, and now, especially in retrospect, after seeing what Ohtani had done, it's like that was the one that was clearly the 4th out of 4, but it was still an A-level effort. So I love Glasnow going tonight. I think that I've said this before, the everydayers will know this, that I always go back to this, that player study that was put out at the beginning of the season. This isn't scouts, this isn't managers, this isn't media, this is players, and the guys that they like facing the least. Tyler Glasnow was in the top 5. Tyler Glasnow, that's how good the stuff is. That's how nasty of a matchup he can be. If he throws strikes, if he competes in the strike zone, I love the chances. He may give up a run or two, but they're not going to clobber him unless he walks guys, which occasionally he does. But I love the matchup tonight for the Dodgers on the mound. I think they have a decided advantage.
If you ask the Blue Jays, who would you prefer having as your starting pitcher in Game 3 with the World Series tied 1-1, Tyler Glasnow or Max Scherzer? I think that the answer would be an easy one. Any team would go with Tyler Glasnow over the 2025 Max Scherzer, because Scherzer has pitched once since September 25th. Game 4 of the ALCS, he went 5 2/3 against Seattle, gave up 3 hits, 4 walks, 2 runs, and struck out 5 on 87 pitches. Not bad, but far from peak Scherzer. Right. That's a long layoff now to suddenly face this Dodgers lineup. That's the big remark right there.
And if the Dodgers grind him the way that they've grinded some of these, look, Gausman was great, but they grinded him up and they got him out of the game. And once you get into that bullpen, that's not the strength of the Toronto Blue Jays. And I bet if John Schneider right now was the truth serum dart in the neck and said, would you take 5 innings? I think he probably would. Well, that means you got to cover 4 more with a bullpen that's been less than great, which is pretty right-handed dominant. And the Dodgers, I think, we're still waiting to see that offensive explosion like you've talked about. Again, I don't think you're going to need to score 8 or 9 runs in these games to win. I think if you get 6, I love it. If you got 5, I like it. And if you got 4, I think you've got a pretty good chance to win the game. So just keep them down a little bit. They're going to get to Scherzer. They're going to get to that bullpen. And if they don't, hat tip time, and you roll the next one to Ohtani, who I know is going to be terrific.
And the following one to Blake Snell. So you have options. You don't want to just be like, okay, let's go to these guys, but you have them there waiting. Either way, you're going to play games 4 and 5 on Tuesday
Yep.
and Wednesday. The huge difference right now between these two rotations, Travis, is the Blue Jays need Max Scherzer.
Yeah.
While the Dodgers, they have Clayton Kershaw in a break in case of emergency situation out of the bullpen. Because if it were last year and Kershaw were available in that 2024 World Series, I can guarantee you they would have used Clayton Kershaw with all those bullpen games and just having Flaherty, Buehler, Yamamoto as your only starters. I feel that Kershaw would have been at least opening the bullpen game. Right now, Kershaw hasn't been used in a long time.
No, just the one game against the Phillies.
Yes.
Like it was close. Like when Yamamoto got off to a little, it feels silly now to say it in retrospect because he ended up going 9 innings again. But earlier, like, hey man, who's next? Because you saw how badly Sheehan had looked in that game the night before, so you knew he was off the table. Maybe it was Robleski, but he had pitched the night before too. Like, had Yamamoto gotten in trouble in that second or third inning, Kershaw was probably the most likely guy to come out of the bullpen in that spot. And that could still be true today. Like if Glasnow got in trouble early, I don't know who else you're going to. I guess maybe you could go back to Robleski or Sheehan at this point, but I don't know. You know, Sheehan looked really spotty in that first game. So we will see. I don't know if you're going to see Kershaw at all, but if you're going to see him, I think it's far more likely you see him early than late.
Yeah, and I mean, look, you brought up the Yamamoto start of the game. I remember the numbers because I spoke about them on a bonus episode of Locked On Dodgers I filmed on Saturday night. 23 pitches through 1 inning.
I know.
46 through 3. And some way, somehow, he only got to 105 through the end of the game. You literally went from pitching 23 times in the first inning to then having single-digit innings in pitches. Yeah. He was outstanding. It's unreal to expect that from a Tyler Glasnow, but take us over the hump. If you can get us through 6,
I think
seven, I'd be like over the moon for. But if you can get us through 6, I have a feeling we'll see Roki Sasaki in the 8th inning and the 9th inning.
I'd take 6. I don't know if you want to double up on Sasaki in game 3 because that takes him off the board for game 4 for sure. And who knows about game 5. I think if you could have Sasaki, in games 3, 4, and 5, inning, I think that's probably a perfect situation, or even better, maybe one, maybe not, maybe one more in game 5. But to your point, I think, the World Series changes the rules entirely. You win the game in front of you. You worry about the next one the next day. You never know what's coming out offensively. So, I would be really surprised, even if the Dodgers are way up or way behind. I think you're going to see Sasaki pitch in this game for sure today, because you're going to need him to knock off whatever rust or dust or whatever we want to call it, because at some point you're going to have a tight game and you're going to want him having, experienced the adrenaline of a World Series prior to it.
Yeah, and obviously we're here on Locked On Dodgers, not Locked On Blue Jays, so we look at things from a Dodgers perspective. But now bringing it up on the Blue Jays side, the key tonight, pitch count. Toronto's approach against Blake Snell in game 1 was textbook for them. Grind out at bats, get to the bullpen early, attack relievers before they settle in. If they do that again, they can neutralize Glasnow's dominance. But if Glasnow on the other end gets into rhythm early and the Dodgers give him just a little bit of run support, or hopefully a lot of it, this could tilt heavily in LA's favor now that the series is at Dodger Stadium.
Yeah, I think it depends, on which trend do you like breaking first? Is the break in the Dodger dominance on the starting pitching? Maybe Glasnow might be the guy. We saw a little bit of a break in the Snell performance. Or is it the break in the Dodgers being relatively quiet offensively? And then, like you said, Harry, we haven't seen them explode since Cincinnati. And not to contradict myself, talking about that great pitching that we've seen throughout the postseason, but every once in a while, even great pitching gets knocked around a little bit. And do the Dodgers have a 7 or an 8 spot in them? That would be nice, because that changes the way you can manage your bullpen for tonight and tomorrow. So hopefully they show up and put up crooked numbers early and kind of take some of that pressure off of Glasnow and the bullpen.
One thing I can say is Buckle up, Dodgers fans. Game 3 is tonight, and hopefully it's a great one for the boys in blue. And honestly, Travis, this Game 3 could decide the full tone of the
Sure.
rest of this year's Fall Classic. Whoever takes this one will be halfway home and sets the emotional temperature, confidence, momentum, swagger for everything that follows. Because Toronto, they hit first. They were Mike Tyson. They hit the Dodgers right in the face, right in the mouth, and they felt it. But then the Dodgers, they were Floyd Mayweather in Game 2 with the way that Yamamoto completely dominated with his arm. So now what's going to happen in Game 3? That's the big question mark, and we only got to wait until 5 p.m. Pacific time to see what goes down.
Cannot wait. I'm bummed that we only have a handful of games left, but I'm excited that our team is still playing, and they win tonight. They can kind of get the high hand in this series and really kind of turn the screws in the next couple.
Hey, only us and Locked On Blue Jays are talking about a team that's our team playing right now. Everybody else, they're already in off-season mode or talking about us like it usually happens. Everybody talking about the boys in blue. All right, that'll do it for today's episode of Locked On Dodgers. Tomorrow, Tuesday, we'll jump into all things regarding Game 3 of the World Series. If you're still craving more baseball talk, have the all-new Locked On MLB Game Night be your second listen. Every game, every night, all season long until a World Series champion is crowned. Get local analysis on a national scale. Find it on Locked On MLB on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. Travis, thank you so much, man. We're kicking off what will be our final full week having baseball being played.
Okay, I'm bummed it's almost over as far as the baseball, but there's always Dodger baseball to talk about, even when they're not playing.
Exactly.
We got parade stuff. We got parade stuff, maybe. Who knows?
Fingers crossed. Exactly. I'll be in LA on Friday to fly out to, where am I going? Nebraska. So hopefully it's a late flight and there's a parade that Friday morning in LA. Exactly. We appreciate you riding with us. Until next time, keep it real. Keep it Dodger Blue.